The morning mist clung to the Ethiopian highlands like a ghostly shroud as Maya adjusted her camera strap and checked her field notes one last time. At 23, she was the youngest researcher ever receive a solo grant to study the complex social behaviors of gelada baboons in the Simeon Mountains. Her excitement was palpable. Today marked her third week in the wilderness, and she was finally starting to understand the intricate dynamics of the baboon troops she'd been observing. The rocky outcrop where she'd positioned herself offered the perfect vantage point to watch the geladas as they foraged in the valley below. These magnificent primates, with their distinctive red chest patches and flowing manes, moved in carefully orchestrated groups. Maya had begun to recognize individual faces, noting how the matriarchs led their families with calculated precision. But she wasn't alone in watching the baboons. From the tree line above, yellow eyes tracked every movement in the valley. A pack of Ethiopian wolves, 6 lean, rust-colored predators, had been hunting these same slopes for days. Unlike their gray cousins elsewhere in the world, these wolves were smaller, more fox-like, but no less deadly when working together. The pack leader, a scarred female with one torn ear, had noticed the young human who appeared each morning. Humans usually meant danger, but this one sat motionless for hours, making soft clicking sounds with a black box. She seemed harmless enough, but the wolf's instincts told her to be cautious. Maya was so absorbed in documenting a fascinating grooming ritual between 2 juvenile baboons that she didn't notice the wolves until it was too late. The attack came swift and silent. The pack had worked their way down through the rocks, using the morning shadows as cover. Maya only became aware of the danger when she heard the distinctive alarm bark of the baboon sentries, a sound that made her blood run cold. She spun around to see 6 pairs of hungry eyes emerging from the mist. The wolves had positioned themselves in a perfect arc, cutting off her escape routes back to her camp. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs as she realized she was trapped on the narrow ledge with a 30-foot drop behind her and an advancing pack in front. "Easy," she whispered, more to calm herself than the wolves. "Easy." The pack leader's lips pulled back in a snarl, revealing sharp canine teeth. Maya fumbled for the emergency flare in her backpack, but her hands were shaking too badly to find the pocket. The wolves began to close in, their coordination flawless, 2 from the left, 2 from the right, and 2 straight ahead. Just as the pack leader gathered her muscles to spring, a sound like thunder erupted from the valley below. The gelada baboons were coming. Not just a few. The entire troop of over 200 individuals was charging up the slope, led by 3 massive silverback males, whose barks could be heard for miles. Their movement was so coordinated it looked choreographed, like a living avalanche of fur and fury. Maya watched in stunned amazement as the baboons didn't flee from the wolves. They advanced on them. The first silverback, a patriarch Maya had nicknamed Scar for the white mark across his muzzle, launched himself at the nearest wolf with a roar that shook the rocks. His massive hands, capable of crushing bone, grabbed the predator and flung it aside like a rag doll. What happened next defied everything Maya thought she knew about animal behavior. The baboons formed a protective barrier around her. The matriarchs positioned themselves in a semicircle, their backs to Maya, while the juveniles stayed behind with the mothers and infants. The silverbacks engaged the wolves directly, their powerful arms and sharp teeth proving more than a match for the confused predators. But this wasn't just chaotic violence, it was strategy. The baboons used their superior numbers and intelligence to outmaneuver the wolves at every turn. When one wolf tried to circle around, 3 baboons would cut it off. When another attempted to retreat, they herded it back toward the silverbacks. It was like watching a chess match played out in fur and flesh. The pack leader, realizing she was outmatched, let out a sharp howl, the retreat signal. But the baboons weren't done. Led by Scar, they escorted the wolves down the mountain, maintaining formation until the predators were well out of the territory. Only then did they return to where Maya sat, still frozen in shock. The massive silverback approached her slowly, his intelligent eyes studying her face. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, human and baboon regarded each other in perfect stillness. Then, Scar did something that Maya would remember for the rest of her life. He gently touched her shoulder with one massive hand, his expression almost concerned. The other baboons watched this interaction with what could only be described as approval. Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, the troop began to disperse back down the mountain. But Maya noticed something crucial. They didn't all leave. From that day forward, wherever Maya went to conduct her research, she was never alone. A small group of baboons, always including at least one silverback, positioned themselves nearby. They never interfered with her work, but their message was clear. She was under their protection. The incident changed everything Maya thought she knew about interspecies relationships. These baboons hadn't just saved her life, they had adopted her into their complex social structure. She had witnessed something that challenged decades of scientific understanding about animal cognition and cooperation. When she finally returned to civilization 3 months later, Maya's research would revolutionize the field of primatology. But she would never forget that morning in the mist when a troop of baboons looked at a helpless human and made a choice that transcended species. They chose compassion over indifference. They chose protection over self-preservation. They chose to save a life that wasn't their own. And in doing so, they proved that the bonds between living beings run deeper than science had ever dared to imagine. The wolves still hunt in those mountains, but Maya's baboon guardians made sure that some prey is simply off limits.